We tend to think that really big, complex systems, we're talking kingdoms, companies, even relationships, that they fall apart because of some huge, obvious threat from the outside. But today we're diving into a story that shows how the real danger, well, it can be a quiet little push from the inside.
The source material for this whole explainer kicks off with this idea, and man, it really sets the stage. It's this thought that the biggest weaknesses aren't always the ones you can see. Sometimes, the most dangerous thing is a tiny, invisible crack that just keeps on spreading. Let's see how that works.
So, to really drive this point home, our source uses a kind of parable. It all starts in this kingdom called Elaria, which, from the outside looking in, is the absolute picture of stability.
So picture this. For generations, this system just worked. You've got the Council of 12 giving just enough direction to keep everyone together, but the local governors have enough freedom to run their own affairs. It's the very definition of a system in balance. It's strong, it's prosperous, and it feels like nothing could ever shake it.
And then we meet our guy, Jorven. Now, he's not some big, scary warlord. He's an insider. The story calls him quiet, unassuming, someone you'd barely even notice. He's not out there yelling for a revolution, he's just planting these tiny little seeds of doubt.
Okay, so you've got this super stable system, right? And this one, kind of subtle, quiet guy. What happens when you throw a little catalyst into that mix? This is where the whole story takes a sharp turn, and it all starts with a single object.
The silver coin. Now, it's not actually magic or anything, but it's this powerful symbol of influence, of ambition. And notice, Jorven doesn't immediately use it to try and grab power. He just quietly takes it. That simple act is the moment his quiet ambition turns into an actual plan, a plan designed to disrupt, not to conquer. And this is just a brilliant illustration of how it all falls apart. It's not one big explosion, it's a slow burn. Look at step 1, a single misdirected message. It's just a little confusion. Annoying, sure, but seems harmless, right? But then it keeps happening. By step 2, the trust in the council, the very bedrock of Elaria, is starting to crack. By step 3, that doubt turns into actual panic. People start looking out for themselves. And that final step? It's not an attack. It's just a symbolic move that basically confirms everyone's worst fears. So the kingdom is on the edge of total collapse. But of course, this is a story, a metaphor. So what was the real mechanism here? What did Jorven actually exploit so perfectly? Exactly. So what was this story actually about? I mean, it clearly wasn't about military power or one little coin. No, it was about something way deeper. That invisible stuff that holds any system together. Our source gives us these 2 perfect words to get what's going on. Integration is basically the glue of the system. It's the trust, the coordination, the feeling that, hey, we're all in this together. Dispersion, well, that's what happens when the glue starts to dissolve. It's the rumors, the doubt, the self-interest. Jorven's whole game was to weaken the integration and crank up the dispersion. And that brings us to the absolute key idea here, cohesion. Think of it like a system's immune system. Every single organization, every society has a certain level of it. Jorven's genius, if you can call it that, was realizing he didn't need to knock down the castle walls. He just needed to attack the trust between the people inside. He went after its internal cohesion.
And just look at this chart. It really shows you the impact. Before Jorven's whole scheme, cohesion was super high, like 95%. The kingdom could handle problems, no big deal. But his quiet, targeted campaign, it just tanks it all the way down to 20%. And at that point, Elaria isn't really a kingdom anymore. It's just a bunch of scared, disconnected towns.
But here's the thing. The story doesn't end with everything in flames. And this is such a key insight in how complex systems actually work. A lot of the time, collapse isn't an end. It's a transformation. Even after everything Jorven did, parts of the system survived. Little pockets of stability formed where people rallied around local leaders they still trusted. And this just proves that point we heard at the very beginning. No single person can destroy a system entirely. It breaks apart, it changes shape, but pieces of it almost always adapt and find a new way to work. Okay, so let's pull this out of the storybook and look at the real world. Because Jorven, he isn't just a character in a parable. He's a pattern and archetype that we see over and over and over again throughout history. The source points to these guys as real-world Jorvens. And think about it. Judas, the ultimate insider, betraying a movement from within. Deng Ai, a famous general in ancient China, whose political games helped bring down his own state, and of course Benedict Arnold, a celebrated American hero whose name is now basically the definition of a traitor. None of them were outside invaders. They were trusted people on the inside who used that trust against the system itself.
See the pattern? They're all following the same playbook. They didn't have to win a huge, dramatic battle on a field somewhere. They just had to subtly push their system's internal cohesion right past its breaking point. It's the silver coin strategy, just played out on the massive stage of world history.
So, after all that, the story, the history, what's the one big lesson we should really walk away with from all this? This is it. This is the whole point. We are so often trained to look for the big external threat, the invading army, the rival company, the market crash. But what this story suggests is that the real vulnerability often lies in those invisible bonds of trust and cooperation, the very things we take for granted every single day.
And that really leads us to one last thought to chew on. This isn't just about ancient kingdoms or historical figures. This applies to the company you work for, the community you live in, maybe even your own family. What is that hidden level of trust, that cohesion, that's holding it all together? And how fragile is it really?